What is going on, everybody? I'm excited. Another day closer to college football. That's how I'm looking as every day passes. We are one day closer to college football. Not that many days left, guys. Not that many days. And we call the off season the trash talk season because everybody is undefeated. So we are running out of time to get all our trash talk out of our systems because some of our teams they're going to lose. They're going to lose that first game. Great example. We're going to have Georgia versus Oregon for one of our first games of the first week. I have some Oregon subscribers. I have some Georgia subscribers. One of your teams is going to grab an L in that first loss or in that first game. Most people think that it's going to be Oregon that grabs that L, but we can't forget last year whenever Oregon went on the road and upset Ohio State. So it is entirely possible that Georgia grabs that L. It is possible. Could you imagine that? You just won the national championship and you start the season off with a big old L. Could have happened. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but it could happen. All right, guys, let's get into it. Quick reminder, everybody that's watching, remember to hit that like button. That's what helps these videos the most. It's not a pat on the back or attaboy going to blue. It helps this video hit the YouTube algorithm, and whenever that happens, the video gets suggested more. Simple as that. People click on it more, and boom, there's your audience getting bigger and bigger. We're going to bring on Joey Foster in as well. Glad to see you recovering, buddy.
Hey, man. Doing good. How you doing?
Touch and go there for a while, wasn't it? It was touch and go there for a while. So glad that you're back. Countdown to college football, man. It's still on, man. It's getting closer and closer.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm getting really excited, and I'm also excited that we're going to have a new perk for our Patreons because I think I'm going to go ahead and do a show
about it.
Yeah, we'll do a new show over on Patreon page, only for Patreon members. And what we're going to do is I'm going to call it the after party, a talk with the professionals, and it's going to be me and maybe a few other guests like Tim at times, Jeff Grimm at times, different people coming on with me, and I'm going to bring on some big names too. We'll bring on some football players, some coaches, and things occasionally, and so you can talk to us, ask us questions. Now I'm not saying that me and Tim are the professionals, but the professionals I'll be bringing on the show. We'll have David Smoke on there at times. I'm hoping we will have Mark Rogers. And see Traveling Fools in the chat. We'll have Traveling Fools on there at times too. So it'd be a lot of fun. If anybody can join us over on Patreon right after this show tonight, I'm going to bring a live stream up and we're going to get on there and talk a little bit about what we're going to do, how the show's going to run, and have a good time tonight. So join us over on Patreon right after this show.
Exactly.
Sounds like
and a lot of people don't realize with the Patreon thing, it's difficult for me to do live shows for the Patreon page because my workday consists of, well, now that the kids are back in school, it's even more compacted. So I wake up, take the kids to school, I get home, pretty much all the time between dropping the kids off from school and picking them up. That's golden Bluetooth time. I have to, figure out what I want to do, shoot the video, edit the video, promote the video. And right now we've been doing a strong push. So I've been doing 2 videos a day, and then that even bleeds into after me picking the kids up. And then, I'm doing my live shows. So I'm trying to find, the time to do Patreon as well, because those guys are super important to Golden Bluetooth. Like, they're contributing financially month after month after month. So they're super important. So I'm actually glad that you came up with this idea because they need some live shows as well. And of course, I'm going to pop in whenever my schedule allows as well. I'm going to, try to find a good day where I can guarantee, hey, if you're doing a Patreon live show on Thursday, I'm going to be there, whatever day it is.
Yeah. And I've also run the idea, Mark Rogers and I have started talking about it, and I'm going to do it we're going to kind of do a joint effort here, a joint venture between Golden Blue Dudes Patreon members and Mark Rogers Patreon members. Those are the 2 memberships that will be invited to this after show. And, we'll come up with the times and exact schedule for it and everything. But, we're looking forward to it. I'm looking really forward to it.
What's going on, Mountaineer News too? You've come on a few times, but we haven't heard any opinions or predictions?
Well, it's just that I don't really know this thing well, so I was
Okay.
just using the first few nights to just figure out what this thing is. But
That makes
here's a
sense. That
weird
makes sense.
scenario that I was thinking about, but yet no one really talks about. A Big 12 ACC merger. Now, before you go laughing me out of the whole
No,
closet,
not laughing.
well, the thing is, this could actually work. Think about this for a second. If you could include the Big 12 schools, which have these rivalries, which have the rivalries, and if you add West Virginia and all those ACC schools and the rivalries, then you're going to get that connection and television cash boom.
Mhm.
And not only that, but if you add like Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, or Colorado, you could get even better access. And not to mention, if they add Notre Dame, because ACC is trying to renew the grant of rights, they could theoretically, well, get a really good contract from ESPN or Fox, and this conference would probably have a bunch of members. Like, I believe, if you add the modern Big 12 and the modern ACC, 12 and 14, you get like, I think, 22. 22 members. And that would be exactly where the Big 10 and SEC wants to go. And not
Right.
and then you would have these good contracts like Fox or ESPN. And if you could get Notre Dame in, and let's say you could bring in a Stanford or Navy in to help entice Notre Dame, now you get
Right.
3 TV contracts, and what I think is like a 3 pods. The Pacific pod will be broadcasted on Fox. The ACC pod will be fully broadcasted on NBC, and the middle pod will be broadcasted by ESPN, which means this would be an extremely powerful conference, around the same level as the SEC, which would put the Big 10 in trouble because of this new powerful conference that I creatively named the Big 14. Why? Because nothing matters anymore in college football, because it's pure insanity. So,
That last
yeah,
part was
this
funny.
is just a random opinion. And another college football prediction I'm wondering is that Florida State, despite all the gains that they've had, they're still gonna stink. Like, legit, they've gone from national championships in the span of 9 years. They went from national championships to being the Dragon Tails of college football. And now,
Facts. The one thing that I liked about your merger scenario was how well thought out it was. I don't think it's going to happen, but you had some really good points in even the last part where not only did you divide it into pods, but you divided into what pods would be on what channel. That actually makes sense. I like that a lot. As long as the networks are affiliated in some way, some form of if they merged and if you would have said, like ESPN gets the West and Fox gets the East, I probably wouldn't have bought it as much because those are 2 separate entities. But, you kept entities that are affiliated with each other in the scenario. So if something like that were to happen, I would actually lean on the ESPN side because I think they're the stronger competitor. And they have more branches. You could have some of the pods on ESPN, some on ESPN2, some on ABC. They just have more tentacles out there. But other than that, I have no complaints. Do I think it'll happen? Probably not. But it was well thought out. That was well thought out, and presented it in a way that's at least made me think. It definitely made me think, for sure.
And not to
mention I do think there will be a merger between 2 of those conferences. Now, I don't know if it's going to be the Pac-12 and the Big 12, the Pac-12 and the ACC, or the Big 12 and the ACC. I guess the biggest thing you'd have to look at is who they have their TV deal with. So if you look at it through those sunglasses or glasses, it would probably make the most sense Pac-12 and ACC because they're both under the ESPN umbrella, and it would be a coast-to-coast thing. So ESPN would be able to compete with Fox on that front as well. They're competing as far as strength goes against Fox with the SEC, but the SEC isn't coast to coast, so a separate front to compete with Fox on the coast to coast thing would be if the ACC and the Pac-12 merged.
Well,
Here's my thought.
the thing
I
is,
think I
know
the
one
Pac-12
thing:
is
the
done.
Pac-12 is going to die. Like, there is no way you could save it. Nobody wants to merge. And also, I don't think Oregon State and Washington State's going to stay because, remember, Washington State's rivaled with Washington, and that's the Apple Cup, which could get a lot of
Right.
attention. And Oregon State's rivals with Oregon, which is the Civil War. So,
Yep.
because they're rivals, I think they will be attached with Oregon and Washington to going to the Big Ten. And Oregon State is rebuilding their stadium. I actually heard about this. And so that's another reason. So if Oregon and Washington's going somewhere, they're taking the rivals with them. So whether the conference is like it or not, if you want Oregon and Washington, you need to Oregon State and Washington State to keep the rivalries happening. And
I get what you're saying, but the only thing is, I don't think they're attached that much. I will say this: I was surprised at the TV ratings that Washington State brought in. It's much higher than people realize. I will give them that. But if it comes down to, hey, this is the Big Ten. Pretend I'm the Big Ten. Hey, Washington. Hey, Oregon. We want you on board. And even if Washington and Oregon counter and say, well, we're not coming without Oregon State or Washington State, Big Ten's like, well, then we're not going to take you. Then they'd be like, oh, okay. Sorry, guys. We're gone.
You want my 2 cents on this
And
one?
then they go to the SEC.
Yeah, Pickles, what do you think?
I don't think people realize, like, we have strong rivalries with our in-state opposition. Oregon-Washington is the big one. That's the one everyone gets up for. It's the one everyone circles. And we love the Apple Cup and we love the Civil War. But they're pretty much neck and neck in a lot of years. Oregon-Washington that's it. That's the big one.
Yep.
And it's not that, again, when I kind of heard, the Big Ten may or may not in the future, but they're looking at primarily Oregon and Washington, there is a little bit of sadness thinking, Wazoo kind of gets the short end of the stick and Oregon State, no matter what. The only hope for them is that the pack holds together, but, it's not looking good the more and more time goes on.
Yeah.
So
one team that has no leg to stand on is Oregon State because, like I mentioned earlier, Washington State has better TV numbers than people realize. So they actually do have a pretty good brand, one of the better brands in the remaining Pac-12. Quick reminder to everybody in the chat: if you want to get my attention, you have a question for me or anybody on the panel, or a comment that you just want us to read, or you want to troll me. That's becoming popular recently. Best way to do that. Or troll Tim. If you want to troll Tim, this is the best way to do it as well.
Where's our good buddy
Super
Judicial?
Chat,
yeah.
I don't see Judicial protest just yet, but I'm sure he'll pop in. Best way to do that is the Super Chat button. That is that little $ you see on the bottom right-hand corner, right under the comment section. Anything you put in that Super Chat, I will put on the screen. If it's a question, I'll read the question, and we'll answer it to the best of our abilities. If it's a comment, we'll read it, address it, and, of course, if you want to troll us.
Yeah.
So here's my thought. I want to go over this real quick. I think the Pac-12 is pretty much, for all intents and purposes, done because their grand rights is coming up in 2024. That's a year before the Big 12, and so if you take the 4 schools that the Big Ten is going to be interested in, which is Oregon, Washington, Stanford, and probably Cal. If you take those 4 schools and they go to the Big Ten. I think right now the Big 12 is extending an olive branch by saying we're open for business.
Yep.
But if there's no takers on that, they're liable to shut that door. And then once them 4 schools leave, Big 12 may not open that door back up to take on the schools like Arizona State, Colorado, Utah, and those schools that are left in the Pac-12. That could be a problem for the Pac-12 if they don't jump on this. And I think that's what the Big 12 is doing right now is they're putting that olive branch out there and saying, hey, you jump now or you don't jump at all. And
the one thing that I would disagree, and I want Tim and Sergeant Pickles to comment on this one as well, and we kind of touched on it yesterday, is I understand what you're saying as far as the Pac-12 is dead, but I don't think they are as far as the name goes. They might be dead as far as Oregon and Washington leaving. Of course, USC and UCLA, they're gone. But they're one of those what was the word y'all used yesterday? It was the A5 that Tony used. They have that
autonomy.
they'll be able to
Yeah, just
attract
tell me about it.
teams out of the Mountain West. There you go. Out of the Mountain West, instead of teams from the Pac-12 having to join the Mountain West, it's going to be the other way around. So I think the Pac-12 is going to survive. It's going to be severely
Money.
weakened, and I don't know if they'll
Right.
be able to keep that status or not because of the lack of brands.
There won't be any
so
money.
I would say I don't think they're quite dead, but they're on life support, and they're going to lose their biggest brands. That is going to happen.
Well, I got a couple
There won't
thoughts.
be no money.
Go ahead, Tim.
Well, no, I'm just thinking it this way. It's not popular amongst Big 12 people, but what I'm going to say is just correct me where I'm wrong. The biggest names are still in the Pac-12. And I'll say it again. The biggest names are still in the Pac-12. So I was writing the obituary for the Pac-12. I mean, show me the error in my ways. Okay. The first idea with the AAC and the Pac-12, ACC and the Pac-12 joining, that's not going to happen because as soon as the grant of rights is broken for the ACC, Clemson, Miami, and Florida State are going to either a Big Ten or going to the SEC. That's just going to happen.
And I would agree with that, but a way to backfill would be to merge with the Pac-12.
Okay, yeah, I mean possibly, but even then, do you think so? Let's say so Clemson, Florida State, Miami, Virginia Tech, couple, and then you have the Pacific Northwest schools and the Arizona schools. That's pretty good, but where do you think that's going to even compete with when it comes to the SEC? When it comes to the big, it's not. You know what I mean? But it's viable. But it's viable. I don't see the Pac-12 standing on its own. I agree with you guys. And I know it's not popular over here, but I don't see the Big 12 standing on its own. I just don't see it. And still being considered a power, an A5 or an A3 or whatever it's going to be. It's not going to happen because, I mean, there were schools that were the Power 5 or the A5 conferences for a reason. Just when we if the Pac-12 adds SDSU and FSU, Fresno State, and a couple other Mountain West schools, it's not going to be able to do it. And I think there's some great programs, and I think, again, people discount Oregon State. I've seen Oregon State in its history do a lot more than any team that's joining the Big 12 right now.
BYU.
That's fair.
Even BYU. Yeah, BYU has one national championship. That's cool.
Over its total, over the whole life of the program, Oregon State used to be dominant back in the day.
Yeah, man. And I want to remind you guys of one thing too. A lot of people outside the Pac-12 don't know, but there's only two teams I can think of off the top of my head that beat USC multiple times during that stretch, and Oregon State was one of them. Oregon State beat some good USC teams, and they've had some great NFL talent. I mean, I don't think people realize what Oregon State has done. It's in a small area. It's way up in Corvallis. I mean, it's not really a problem. But I mean, back in the day, in the 2000s, you would see them on SportsCenter. They were a top 25 team, and they constantly have NFL players. So I mean, people are discounting even the quote unquote lowest of the Pac-12 schools, right? Which I don't agree with. Again, they used to kill us all the time. So I just worry about if the Big 12 and the Pac-12 think, well, we're just going to add some teams and we're going to be fine. It's not. You know what I mean? It's just not going to be enough. So
I want to get Shooter's opinion on what you just said about the Big 12 as far as now. I don't want to mess up what you said. You said that the Big 12 as is with the new members coming in, you don't think they're strong enough to stand on their own, right?
Oh no, they're strong to stay on their own, but they're not strong enough to still stay in the same league as to be spoken of the same way as the Big Ten and the SEC.
Okay, Shooter, how do you feel about that?
They're going to have to merge with the ACC.
I would say that's accurate, but then again, nobody's going to try to compete toe-to-toe with the
I can't hear you. Two people are talking at the same time.
At this point, it's impossible to compete with the SEC or the Big Ten at this point.
Yeah, was Shooter talking?
Oh, sorry, guys. Yeah, I was just going to say it's really not. I don't think the Big 12 or the Pac-12 or the ACC even is going to try to go toe-to-toe with the SEC or the Big Ten. That's gone. That's not going to happen. It's really more about, can you be close enough? Yeah, the Power Three. Can you put together one or two teams that could compete in a college playoff? Not can you get 6 or 8 or 10 of them? Can you get 1 or 2? And I think that's possible. I would say, going back to your other comment, though, I think the problem with the Pac-12 going forward is just the money. Because the money that's being leaked out, the numbers that are being thrown out there right now for the remaining 10 are not good numbers. And I agree, there's some great brands in the remaining 10, but if they can't draw the numbers, that's what really ends the conference. If the Big 12 can actually get these numbers that are being thrown out there, if the ACC can renegotiate and get what they should get, which is way more than they're getting now, that's what would actually end the Pac-12. It's not about, their brands and all that stuff. It's really about the money, unfortunately.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree with you.
That's why I was surprised at the new TV deal. I thought that the Pac-12 still had enough big brands in there to where they could get a better deal than what they got. Was that based on maybe they know that a few teams are leaving?
I got something on that. I talked to Tony on Twitter and all that, and he kind of clarified it for me because he's, throwing punches back at Big 12 people that are trolling him.
Yeah.
That 24.5, we all understand this is the exclusive period, so you're getting one bidder making a single offer, and they know they can cut you at the knees. I'm not pretending that the offer is going to magically double, but that was from what I understand, that was tier 1 rights. That's the most basic thing you're going to get. So there is additional value beyond that. That giant projection sheet where Big 12 is saying, $50 million, we're double the Pac-12. That's for the whole thing. That's all of it. I do think in the end, based, my opinion, that the Big 12 will end up slightly higher, but it's not going to be this gap of double. Maybe it's 5 million, 10 million. But at that point, if it is, 10 million is a little bit of a stretch. If it is 5 million, there's actually a risk reward in moving conferences. So I don't think you see a bunch of Pac jumping ship if it is that gap.
What about the revenue share that they said was being proposed, as far as Oregon and Washington wanting the 16.5%, equaling out to $44 million, and then Cal and Stanford went in 13.5%, which equals out to like $33 million, I think is what they said, or 30, and then the other 6 would end up with the 6.6%, meaning they would get 16.1 million. Is that closer to being done than an even share?
I have nothing that, I've not seen any reliable sources. I've seen a lot of people discussing it, but everything I can tell, Oregon and Washington, they didn't get to be good programs by being idiots. They know that basically kills the Pac today, as opposed to whenever the Big 10 wants, because that's kind of what we're waiting on, is for them to drop the guillotine if they so choose.
Right.
And Oregon and Washington know that it's a non-starter to split revenue like that today. That kills the conference, and then it dissolves and you break apart anyways. So yeah. I think there is something to be said for they're wanting to preserve the Pac until their life raft comes, as harsh as that is.
Well, but that tells me that maybe they know that it is coming. Maybe there is a timeline that we all don't know about. Maybe the Big Ten and Washington, Oregon have had those conversations, and they're like, we can't let you in now, but this is the year. So, that's when Washington and Oregon approach the Pac-12 and say, this is what we want, because they know they're leaving in said year. Could that be possible?
2026 is the date where everything changes. 2026 is when the new playoff format comes, which we've seen it thrown out there. And, Big Ten and SEC, there's nothing actually stopping them from just saying, hey, we've decided we're ditching all the rest of you lesser people that we don't care about anymore. Yeah. We're having our own little mini tournament, the top 4 versus the top 4 or so on. And that changes the media rights values. That changes everything. So that's what they're saying about this media right, length of they don't want to sign a longer deal. Ideally, all the big teams, it's not that they're expecting to get into the Big or SEC, I would imagine at this point, but you want to have that flexibility that when that moment comes, that's, I believe, the same year Notre Dame's deal comes up. So the college football playoff, Notre Dame's deal, and then the crazy money for the big conferences is kicking in. You want to have maximum flexibility so that if that window opens up, you can jump right through it.
That makes sense. So you brought up the playoffs. I want to talk about that for a minute. So the 16-team playoff format is actually gaining a lot of traction recently. It's starting to get a lot of a buzz around it. People are leaning towards the 16 team. So I want to talk to all my guests about this and see which one you guys would prefer. If there's an 8-team format, out on the table, a 12 team and a 16 team, which one would you prefer and why? I'm going to start with Joey.
I prefer the 12-team format, and I'm going to also add in there that there's no way that the SEC and the Big Ten will come up with a scenario to where they're playing for all the marbles and everybody else is left out. I don't think that we get much television revenue for that, because you can't isolate half the country and get the same viewership for a playoff. You know, does that make sense? So if you don't include Big 12 teams in that, if you don't include Pac-12 and everything in all that, there's no way that's going to happen. So I think that's completely out the window. But I am for the 12 team. I don't like the bye week, but what can you do? I think it just has to be that way.
I actually like it because it adds incentive. Let's go to Tim next. Which one would you prefer and why?
Yeah, I've for the longest time been a big proponent of the 8-team playoff, because I think that there should be auto bids. Back in the day when there's a Power 5, well, now that's pretty much, I don't know. I don't think that's gonna be an option anymore. Yeah, that's not really gonna be happening anymore.
At best.
So I think that, to be honest with you, I think 12. I'm with Joey. I don't like buys. I hear your incentive thing, but in college football, I just think it's too much of an advantage. There's too much risk. You're sitting up back, and other teams are playing an extra game. There's injuries, etc. I don't like the whole buy thing. I can
understand that.
And I think 16 is just a money grab, and it kind of dilutes the entire. It does. It dilutes the conference championship games. It dilutes the regular season.
The crazy thing is that kind of surprised me was that the SEC says that they're against the 16 team, and we all know that they would put in 8 or 9 if they went to 16. So I was kind of surprised.
Well, no,
hold on. Thank you, Suspicious Cade, for $5 donation. Says, can't wait to watch Pitt get stomped. I can't wait to see it in person. Says, I can already hear Country Roads and Sweet Caroline in the distance. 100% agree with that. Thank you, Shane M 1980, for the $5 donation. Says, playoff expansion is awful. The regular season is what makes college football special. I would agree with that, but at the same time, things change and things progress, and you got to keep up with the times.
LSU fan, imagine that.
Well, I mean, it is what it is. Yeah, well, we can actually thank LSU and Alabama, because that rematch was one of the biggest things that got the playoffs violently shoved into the limelight. People did not like that rematch at all, and that's basically what got the ball really rolling really fast for the 4 team to get started. I'm okay with any of them, but I'm going to give my opinion here at the end. I'm going to go to Sergeant Pickles real quick. Which format would you prefer and why?
I was definitely on the 16 team, because at that point I kind of looked at the rough math based on the standings, and your worst teams in that are likely 9 and 4. My problem with the current playoff format is, for everyone not in, the Big Ten and SEC, 2 losses and you're hosed. Your season's done. So everyone's talking about the regular season not mattering. If you got 2 losses and your aspiration is to make the playoff, you're pretty much hosed. You're done.
Yeah.
So I was on the 16 team wagon because I didn't like the idea of buys and, bias, and we've seen some of that play out before. But then someone brought up, if you can do 12 and the first 2 rounds are home campus, you will know the location of every single game before the playoff starts. You're not waiting to see where the game will be played. Fans can schedule travel if they want. It makes it very simple. TV crews work out.
Nice.
So it's a trade-off. But if you play the first 2 rounds at home, that means that seeds 1 through 4, they're playing for the bye. Seeds 5 through 8 are playing to host the game. And then, 9 through 12 are just playing to get in, and, additional teams that don't quite make the cut. Everyone's got something to play for. Yeah, it's, we might see quite a few big and SEC teams getting those buys. But, you're going to have 8 separate home sites, hosting games, which I think would be very cool.
That's what I want. I mean, we've seen great playoff atmospheres in Major League Baseball, the NFL, the NHL. I am not a hockey guy, but whenever playoffs come around for the NHL, I actually watch a few of those series because the home atmosphere is crazy. College football has never done that. So the day that happens, I'm going to be watching every stinking game, with bated breath. Thank you, Mark Spagnola. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly for the $5 donation. Says, August football is ripe. I love August football because, it's the first games. You're hyped up. Everybody's undefeated. You still have a chance. You don't know how good or how bad your team's going to be. I would agree with that. And, of course, our favorite guy is in the house. I'm assuming guy. Judicial Protest. Thank you for the $5 donation. Says, I'm for the 4-team playoff. It keeps JUCO directional schools like USC out of the playoffs. Now we know.
Amazing considering Harvard isn't even eligible.
Let me go to TND. He added to his name. He added to his name. Let me go to TND. Jack State fan, Jacksonville State.
Yeah.
12,
and since we're on
8, 12,
the
or
topic
16.
of playoff expansion, I have experience with these expanded playoff brackets. I'm going to tell all y'all right now that playoff expansion does not work with parity in the long run, and let me tell you why. The FCS is dominated by 3 conferences: the Missouri Valley, that's the conference with North Dakota State. There's the Big Sky, which Tim might know. It's the conference with Eastern Washington, Montana, and them. And then you have the Colonial Athletic, who just added Campbell today on Hump Day. They were James Madison's old conference. Those 3 conferences, they have dominated the FCS playoffs for years. North Dakota State has won, I forget how many of the last 11. So
8 of them.
The way the FCS does it, they've experimented with more teams, but the result is always the same. 3 or 4 or 5 teams always make it to the end every single time. So, I mean, yeah, you could have a 12-team playoff, but that's not going to stop Alabama and Ohio State, Georgia, Clemson.
I would agree with that, but the way I look at it is I'm not looking for – we got to find a way to trip up these teams. And, I've accepted that Alabama's probably going to make it to the national championship at least every other year, maybe 2 out of 3, every 3 years. Georgia's going to be there. I've come to peace with that. I just want to see other compelling matchups to go along with that. If the end is still the same and it's Alabama versus Georgia or Alabama versus Oklahoma or Alabama versus Clemson or Ohio State, whoever, all those teams that we're used to seeing in the national championship, I'm fine with that. It's those other potential matchups that we're missing out on.
Yeah, but see what I'm saying, GBD, is it doesn't matter how many more playoff spots you add. Those top 2 or 3 conferences, they're going to just keep adding. It's just adding more spots for these top conferences to have members in the playoff to win the national championship. So, you add more slots. Well, then you add room for, say, a Texas A&M or an Ole Miss or a Florida, or for the Big Ten, it adds a spot for Michigan, Ohio State, Wisconsin.
Yep.
So that's 6 spots. What's left? I don't know, Oklahoma when they decide to get good in the SEC.
For me, it's as long as they guarantee a spot for all the other Power 5 conference champions and guarantee a spot for the highest ranked or the best group of 5 champion, however it's worded, as long as they are guaranteed at least one spot, okay, the SEC gets 5 or 6 teams in, the Big Ten gets 3 or 4 in, I'm fine with that as long as there's at least one representative from these other conferences.
That's fair enough, but let's say conference realignment continues and Utah goes to, say, the Big Ten or the Big 12. Well, then who does the Pac-12 have that could possibly stand up to any of those teams? I mean, that's a first-round loss. Same with the ACC. You get rid of Clemson. Maybe Miami decides to get good, but that's a first-round loss. So it just goes back to these.
That falls on the teams, though. That's beyond all of our control. I'm just saying I want to see more. If a Miami gets better and they're good enough to make the playoffs, there's more spots for teams like a Miami or an up and coming USC or an Oklahoma. We could see a matchup like a USC versus Oklahoma in the playoffs with a 12 team or a 16 team. Otherwise, we went and a home playoff game, either played in Norman or at the Coliseum. Sign me up for that. I mean, even if they don't make it past the round after that, at least we got to see that matchup.
Yeah, but then you get to the second round, and it's mostly conference matchups between like the SEC and the bigger conferences that have one. But again,
I'm saying one more step
I
of
mean, two
of
teams
games
you had
that we're
Alabama,
missing
LSU. 14
until we
you had
get to
Alabama,
what we already
Georgia.
have. Eventually, yes, we get to what we already have with whenever it's whittled down to 4. We already have that. What I'm saying is give us an extra layer that gets us to that. We're used to that. We've come to peace with that. It's those first round games that I would be excited about as far as, who's going to play who. An Oklahoma USC, where's it going to be played? The Coliseum or Norman? Stuff like that. And then once you get to the top 4, yeah, it's probably going to be Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, maybe a Notre Dame, whoever. And that's fine. I've come to peace with that. I just want more compelling matchups in the first round. And one of the excuses is, that's going to lead to more blowouts. Have you seen the national championships recently? We've had more blowouts than close games recently. So that's an irrelevant argument. Blowouts are going to happen no matter what. We're already getting blowouts in the playoffs, and we're already getting blowouts in the national championship. Get rid of that argument. Come up with a better argument.
Yeah.
Could I jump in a sec?
Go ahead.
Oh, sure. I was just going to finish with, look, I know where this goes. Y'all haven't seen it yet at the highest level, but I'll just let y'all experience it for yourselves when it happens.
That's fair.
Yeah, I rest my case. Go ahead.
Yeah.
No problem.
I'm also the other team I support. I was actually born in Montana, is University of Montana, so I do watch the FCS playoffs.
Yep.
It's mostly that the playoff field is just massive, so you do get the same teams at the end. But how is that any different from what we have now? So, in that sense, I think 12 team is a lot different than 24. And in our current situation is several conferences get completely left out where they don't even have a shot or they have to go perfect to even make it. Just like Washington in 2016, they basically had to be perfect just to get there. And then they barely made it in as the 4 seed. And they got
so here, out. How about this, you guys? Because again, I have never in my life watching football saw more than 4 teams I thought should have been, had a chance for a national champion. I mean, you really could take that last AP poll, look at the top 4 teams, and those are your champions. Now, but I do get it. I've always been, if we're going to call it a playoff, the conference championships have to matter. The big problem is, and by the way, GBD, I was looking, you said that the SEC, I don't know if you're being hyperbolic, but just last year alone, the SEC only had 3 teams that would have made into a 16-team playoff. Alabama, Georgia, and Ole Miss are the only 3 schools in the SEC that are in the top 16.
That actually makes sense because you think of the other teams like Kentucky, they were good, but they were barely top 20. Not South Carolina, not Tennessee, not Mississippi State, Arkansas, barely a top 25 team. You're absolutely right. Yes. Texas A&M, they 8-4. They couldn't get the job done last year.
But the bigger thing is there's I'm all kinds of things. Like what if Bryce Young gets a broken arm playing Iowa in round 1 of the playoffs? Do you know what I mean? It's just stuff like that. And I don't think we need to have that. If we go to 16, that's just a money grab. That's just a bunch of money being made. 8 extra games that the networks are going to make. That's why they're pushing for all that stuff. 8 teams, 5 conference champions, 3 at large. I just don't know why.
I don't adding one more game by doing that.
You won't see a 16 team. I guarantee you that. Because if you listen to the Big Ten, Warren has already said he's not going to 16. The SEC is not going to 16. The SEC gets 2 teams in on 4. All the other places want to limit no more than 4 teams. So we can get 4 teams in on 8 sometimes.
Mods, I need y'all to take care of the spam.
So what you're going to look at is if you're going to expand it, it has to be 8 teams. And Tim, I do agree. I do like conference champions, but the problem is conferences are nowhere near equal anymore. You cannot tell me that a Big 12 is as equal as a Big 10 or a SEC, plus what happens to the 1 year, and it has only happened once, and I know this, but what happens when an 11-1 Baylor loses to let's say an 8-4 Iowa State
Yeah.
in the
Good
title
point.
game. Do you really want Iowa State in the championship playoffs?
That's why I'm glad they're getting.
Here's
Both
the thing.
conferences are getting rid of divisions, and it's going to be the top 2 teams. So maybe that scenario gets tossed out the window, anyways.
My question would be: is do you want to call it a playoff, or do you want to call it an invitational?
I want an invitational. I want the 8 best teams in.
But who decides the best 8 teams?
Well, that's the problem. I did like the BCS somewhat.
Yeah.
You got to tweak the BCS a little bit. You got to come up with a fair computer, because I don't like the people, because people, we all make mistakes. And I mean,
they all have an investment in it too.
I don't care who you are. If I'm for the SEC, but LSU's in it, that's not my team. But you know what? I'm going to go for them because they're in my conference, you know. And I agree, Tim. We got to find the best way to pick the top 8 teams.
And you remember, Jeff, though, the computer modeling, didn't one of the components of the computer modeling had to do with the polls? I mean, it's just circular reasoning. And so basically strength of schedule is based on who you played and how they're ranked. And but then we're ranking, and then we're giving credit, and then there's bias. So the thing with the computer polls is it's only as good as the data that you put into it. So when you have it, if it's decided by ESPN that the SEC, the top 16 teams SEC could beat the Pac-12 champion every year, when we have this idea of how we're going to rank everything, you know how you do it? And it doesn't matter. Here's my point. The whole thing here is to get as many people involved and to make sure that you have the actual champion. It's not about, well, I think my conference deserves 3 or my conference deserves 1 or this guy's 8 and this guy's 9. That's where you get screwed up. If you had it to where the 7 highest ranked conference champions played each other with 1 at large, I'm sorry. Someone tell me why that doesn't work, because then that would save the year you have a great UCF team that gets locked out, or you have a great BYU team that gets locked out. That's what it protects against. And yeah, so what? We're going to see blowouts anyway. Why not have conference champions? Because they earned it on the field.
I agree.
I don't know about you guys. I would have loved to see Boise State in a second game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
So I mean, again, I think it's all ruined now because it's all been completely like concentrated into like.
Think about this. Hold on. Think about this. 2007, West Virginia gets another chance.
Yep.
But no, why are we talking about second chances though? You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying.
That's how I worded it. That's
because you're good enough to make it in, and you can settle it on the field.
Okay, so think this way, right? Let's say you're number just for instance this year, Michigan finished number 2, and Iowa finished 15. And Michigan beat, I don't know, I'm just making this up, Iowa and Iowa City. I don't know where the hell they played. They beat them on the field. So now they have to play again?
Yeah.
How is that fair to Michigan, who beat them in a regular season head-to-head? You know, when Georgia a couple of years beat Alabama head-to-head, lost to them in the playoffs, or vice versa this year. You know, Alabama beats them in a championship game, and then a road match to Georgia. Well, to my knowledge, that was 1-1 this year, right? 1-1. So how can we give the national championship to Georgia when they're 1-1 against the team? We're going backwards. We're going backwards where you have the situation where you really don't know who the champion is. Why is the team that got beat by another team the first time and then they win the second one, at the very least have a third game? They're not going to do that either. Tim, it's not about the top 16 teams play. You have a chance to win your conference. You don't win your conference, shut up. Just win your conference, get into the playoffs. That way, everyone played their way in. Well, I think my conference deserves 4 or 5 teams. Just shut up. Win your conference and then go to the playoffs.
That's a waste of time. That's a good argument, actually. Thank you, Shane M. 1980 for the $5 donation. Says, sounds like many fan bases don't want to be the best. They're just hoping to get in and get lucky. Kind of sad. That's a true statement right there. That's fair. That is a fair, true statement. I 100% agree with that. You know, you got to be better. You got to play better. You can't hope for, you know, well, maybe they'll lose and we can backdoor our way in. I mean, yes, that does happen, but you can't base your season on backdooring your way in. Get out there, improve, and win on the field.
That's not totally true when some worthy teams are being locked out because of what conference they're in, though. It's not like everyone's got the same starting point anymore.
Right.
If you want to call it a playoff, you have to play your way in. Period.
And the problem is right now it's all gearing up for just 2 conferences. ESPN has taken the SEC, Fox has taken the Big Ten, and it's gearing up, and they're adding all these teams so that way both of the conferences get 2, 3, 4 teams in a playoffs.
Another thing that a lot of people aren't talking about is by the Big 12 grabbing BYU, Houston, UCF, and Cincinnati, that greatly dampens the argument for a Group of 5 champion to get into the playoffs because all the best Group of 5 teams are being bumped up to FBS. So I think that's something that a lot of people are overlooking. Like, I would like to see a playoffs that guarantee the highest ranked or the best, however they want to decide it, one Group of 5 champion, whoever the best champion is, gets in. But if all the best Group of 5 teams are being pulled up into FBS, that argument kind of goes out the window.
Well, you still have Boise State. Mountain West has been untouched.
Yeah, but Boise State hasn't been very good the past couple of years.
Well, what if there was a year when they do go undefeated?
Then
do they
would
get
have
in?
Argument, yes. Yes.
So let me ask you
I think
this
Boise
then.
State
Okay.
has made some critical
It's easy.
mistakes, timing mistakes.
It's easy to say that, but let's say Fresno State wins the Mountain West and Houston wins the AAC. Which one's the best? How do you figure that if they haven't played each other?
They would probably go by rankings.
And
I'm just
strength
saying
of
if we're both
schedule.
undefeated.
SOS,
both
strength of
undefeated.
schedule, rankings.
So that's when you need some kind of pretty detailed formula to figure that out.
Yeah. Tiebreakers.
Right.
Or maybe you have a wild
And that's
card
the
game.
same problem. It's the same boat we're in right now. It's the same problem we were
Right.
in back in the BCS era. And the same problem we're in now. Which team's better? Let them settle it on the field. If there's 2 Group of 5 teams that are undefeated, put them in the damn playoff. If it's a 12-team playoff, you can do it easy.
What about what
If it's-
MLB does? A play-in game.
Yeah, like a wild card game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
why not? Yeah, why not?
Because I kind of want to keep college football. I keep hearing like the NFL model and this and that. It's like there's a reason why I like college football more than the NFL. And one of the things is the fact that there are divisions, there are conferences, and these different groups coming together. You know, I'd like it not to be. I would love to hear an argument from anybody here on the panel. Why should you be the national champion if you can't win your own conference?
Because the conferences aren't even anymore. It's not even close.
Yeah.
No.
And
My
I mean,
question
in all
is,
There's
honesty,
a way to
Cam,
figure
No,
that
hold
out
on.
without them playing a playing game. Then I'm
no.
all
My
ears for
question
that.
my question is someone beat you in your conference to win your conference? Why does that team have to beat you again in some kind of tournament?
well, like Alabama, Tim, we lost at home to LSU. Then we beat LSU in the playoffs, and we're national champions. Last year, we beat Georgia in the SEC championship, and then we lost the national championship. You know, so I mean, I don't blame Georgia because I mean we did it to LSU. I don't think it's right. I agree with you. I think when we lost to LSU, we had our chance at home. We lost.
Yeah.
Too bad. We shouldn't have.
That's all I'm saying. Why do
Yeah.
some teams in certain conferences get a mulligan? And then there's teams that go 11-1 in other conferences. They don't even get a shot.
But I
already
think it's
been that
because
way.
of the
I don't even-
SEC brand.
Yeah, there shouldn't be second chances in the
The
playoffs.
SEC East is not exactly the strongest conference in the world. And if the cards roll right for you and you're in the SEC East, I mean, it's not like you're doing world beaters because you know you're playing 4 little sisters of the poor as well on the way to, you know. So, I mean, it's
Yeah, it's literally just Georgia
I-
and then everybody else.
I get the
It
whole
has been.
point. I
Yeah.
do understand that the top to bottom and definitely at the top of the SEC for the past X amount of years has been just phenomenal. But this is not based on the last 8 years of history. This is based on, I think when they do this contract, how long is the contract going to be good for? 10 years? And I mean, again, this is all kind of a moot point because we're moving to, again, a power 3, which is really going to be like a power 2 with a pretty strong 3 kind of situation.
Right.
And I've never in my life, and I still haven't heard it. Well, because the conferences aren't equal. Again, tough titties, man. That's the whole thing. Win your conference and you're in. I just don't get why we need to have teams in conferences that finish second place in their conference. Or if we go to 12 or 16, you finish third in your conference and you got a chance to win the national championship. I don't care how great you think your league is. You can't come in third place in a league and win the national championship. That's just, it makes a mockery of the sport, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm not
So-
taking a shot
so,
at
Cam-
Alabama or Jeff Grimm or Nick Saban per se. He just provided the example. So before Alabama got in without winning their conference, Nick Saban was preaching, I've always felt that you have to win your conference to get into the playoffs. He was mad at Ohio State, I think it was, and then he didn't win his conference, and they got in, but he was okay with that. So to me, it seems like it's more of what affects your team. If your team has a really good year, looks really good, but they slip up one time, and it costs them a spot in the conference championship game, and you still get invited, your opinion would be like, well, we still had a really good team. I think we deserve to get in. So that one's hard to really nail down because it depends on who your team is and how it affected your team.
I agree.
It's an argument of, do you want the actual, best of the best, or do you want the most fair across the board?
Exactly.
Well, I'm not even saying fair. I'm not saying fair. I'm just saying it should be so decided on the field, not a bunch of guys. And it's TV executives. Really, it's not even football coaches or anything. A bunch of guys decide, okay, now what matchups look the best to everybody. Let's get how much TV. This is all about TV. We've won this forever, and I remember back in the '90s, we were just begging for a +1. Hey, let's play the Bulls out, and whoever's 1 and 2, let's match it. And all the oh no, we can't. That's too many games. We can't do that to our kids. And now we're talking about 16 freaking teams. I mean, are we all? Listen, let's not us fans try to ruin our sport. We already have ESPN and Fox doing it. We got to keep something about college football. And if you don't win again, you got to win your conference. Am I asking too much? Hey, you want to win that championship? Win your conference.
I'm loving this passion. Are you familiar with this website, Tim? Judicial protest. Oh, my point bell. Who plugged? Somebody plugged and the light fell. Sorry, guys. I'm holding up the light.
Judicial protest is sabotaging the GBD.
Anyways, so what? Judicial protest. Are you familiar with this website? He says Tim started a website called USCBackdoorFans.com to promote its backdoor into the playoffs. Why isn't it up? Not in the Big Ten yet. Are you familiar with that website? I was not familiar with it.
What's hilarious about his comment is the fact that I'm literally arguing against my own team's best interests. Right. And I'll repeat that. I'm actually arguing against my team's best interest because do I think USC is going to be winning against Ohio State and Michigan State and Penn State every year and to get to the playoffs? No, but I'm saying USC, if they want to be in the playoffs, they need to beat those teams in the championship game, get the championship game first, and then beat them. Because I don't want to backdoor my way in by being third place in the Big Ten and getting a shot.
I'm kind of screwing myself because that's the only chance the Pac has.
We're all talking about this. We're all talking about this playoff, and nothing's been decided yet. They might get together in 2026 and decide to keep it the same. Here's what I'm thinking. So we all wanted some kind of conference or playoff expansion simply because there were five Power 5 conferences, and then there was always a good conference out of the G5. And so we wanted a playoff expansion for that. If we're condensing down these conferences and there's not going to be 5 anymore, maybe it doesn't expand. Maybe we keep it at 4 and the four conference champions go. I mean, I think that could possibly happen to where it stays at 4 and the 4 conference champions go, like you're talking about, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it'll be it might. I know. I'm confused with people. By the way, Mark said that USC will be in the West Division. I don't think there will be divisions, actually. I think that they are going to add more teams, and I think it's going to be more than just 2. And I think they're to keep the model that Pac-12 started by saying our top 2 best records are going to play each other. But
and I think they'll schedule it to where they won't be going east maybe once a year. Like to your Rutgers, Maryland, Michigan. Most of your road trips will be to your Nebraskas, your Minnesotas, your Iowa stuff, and I think that's fair because that's a longer trip than West Virginia, and I can tell you right now that absolutely affects play on the field, all that travel. So I think that's how they're going to do it with UCLA and USC.
Well, and think about this: USC and UCLA, when they travel, they lose time.
Yes, it is much more difficult going from west to east than going east to west. Yes.
Yeah, when Bama goes to USC, we still got 2 more hours in us, But when USC comes to Alabama, you lose 3 hours.
You know how I think they should do it as far as scheduling for USC and UCLA? For their road trips, I think they should try to play some in 2s. In other words, go out to Nebraska and Nebraska, Iowa, That's 2 back-to-back road trips, and then maybe 2 home games in between, and then your other 2 road conference games, maybe to like a Purdue or a Michigan or whatever. That way, you're not going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You're making it as convenient as possible without making it too apparent that you're being you're playing favoritism. I think that would be fair.
Right, and especially like in basketball and that, when you got back and backs, you've got to send UCLA and USC to like Michigan State, and like you said, or Rutgers and Pennsylvania and Penn State. You got to have those 2 together.
The only time it's going to be an issue, I think, is if they want to have a 12 noon kickoff game.
Oh, yeah.
And
Definitely.
I mean, there's no way that, because really that's up to the TV. The TV people pick the slots that they want to do. And so let's just say it's going to suck and they want to put like, I don't know, USC Penn State, right? And so now there's going to be a 3-hour difference. And they put USC in that game. It's going to be 9 a.m. for the USC guys.
Yep.
But at the same time, you remember they're flying in, these kids. I mean, a lot of times also I've seen it done in fall camp where they have morning workouts, you know? So all you do is you start training your kids to be used to the mornings instead of the afternoons. I mean, there's a lot of ways to get around it. The 3 hours, I think people do make a little bit of a difference in the time schedule. And it's not going to be, I don't think it's that big of a difference. I really don't. It's not massive. It's going to be a hurdle, but it's not a deal breaker.
You know? Shout out to FSU 45
for you.
Guys, shout out to FSU 45. He is a Patreon member. He is a loyal subscriber, and now throwing in a super chat. This guy supports Golden Blue Dude like no other. Thank you for the $10 donation, FSU 45. He says, nice at GBD, go Mountaineers, which, by the way, I'm actually going to go visit FSU 45 the next time I'm in West Virginia, which will be for the Backyard Brawl. I don't know which day, but I found out he lives like less than a mile from where I stay whenever I go up there. So I'm actually going to go over to his house and hang out with him for a little bit.
Well, I think it's going to be more. I mean, I think Kurt Hershey hit on it too. It's going to be more of a power 3. And then I think I can see him staying at 4. And Joey, the contract's up in 2026, right? But they're not going to wait till the year. They're going to. I believe I heard they're already starting to talk about the playoffs again just recently. Am I wrong on that?
They're not going to decide anything though, or they're probably not even discussing it in detail.
I'm going to mute myself, guys.
So many teams are going to be changing conferences still, possibly. You know, not saying it's going to happen, but we're pretty sure that Oregon and Washington may possibly go to the Big Ten. You know, I think they won't. I don't think they're going to. I think they're going to wait till 2026 to actually discuss it in detail and hash out a plan for the playoffs. I think until then it's just speculation. I don't believe there's anything actually being talked about seriously.
I think there's going to be pressure, Joey. I think there's going to be pressure from the networks to get them to get a deal done, because I think what's holding Notre Dame up right now is Notre Dame wants to know a couple of things. One, what's the contract? You know, what kind of contracts are they looking at? What are their options? That's why they're waiting, because they can wait. Notre Dame can wait as long as they want, and any conference is going to take them. That's the first part. The second part is why, if they can feasibly stay independent, they want to see, are they going to be locked out of a playoff? And if they keep it at 4, and they say, hey, you know, there's that conference champions, and then we're going to have the highest ranked wild card team, you know, or non-conference or independent team, then they might, you know, be happy with that. But I'm curious to see what the playoff situation turns out to be, because if it's not advantageous to Notre Dame, they might be forced into a conference.
Or maybe
they remember
They can't wait till 2026. They got to have something in place before 2026, so that way the TV's there, you know, and it's all in place.
Does everybody think that Notre Dame is going to stay independent forever? What's y'all's opinion about that?
No, Notre Dame.
It depends on how the playoffs shake out.
That's what I would say, and if they can reach the payout that they want, because
it's
I mean, I don't know why. Well, I know why they love being independent so much, because of the scheduling and being special or whatever. But with the way that college football, the direction that it's going in, that being special and being able to work out your own schedule doesn't mean all that much if you don't get a slice of the pie, and if you're not invited to the dance, aka the playoffs.
Well, and that's what's going to hurt Notre Dame. It's the playoffs. It's not the money.
I think they eventually end up in the Big Ten, but they're going to get a special deal where they may only get, you know, they may only get the standard handful of conference games, but they're going to have way more locked-in opponents with those traditional rivals, and they're
Right.
going to be able to schedule your SC, every year, your Stanford every year, whether or not they're also in the Big Ten. They're going to play Navy every year. Their whole schedule is basically going to be, they're going to know all their opponents every year, and the Big Ten's going to schedule everything around that. I think they would do
Am I
it.
the only one?
I think the Big
Am I
Ten
the
is
only
going
one
to
here
play the
that
Stanford
didn't
card
forget?
as well.
Am I the only one here that didn't forget that Notre Dame is locked into a granted rights contract with the ACC until 2036? Everybody talking
Yeah,
about moving to the
but
Big
I'm not
Ten.
sure
I
how
don't see it.
ironclad.
I just don't want
If you
anything.
join a conference before 2036, it has to be the ACC.
And they're
I'm
not a full
sure how-
member. And they're not a full member of football. It's not the same
Right.
thing as those ACC
Right,
schools.
they
Their
can just
buyout
move
would be
their
considerably
football
less.
over.
I mean, look at 2020. They were able to be a full member for just 1 year and then get immediately back out. I mean, that tells you right there
Right.
that there's ways around it.
But
And Joey,
here's the
remember,
question.
if the I don't know what the contract how it escalates. I know it goes up. But let's say right now, let's say the difference between I don't know what it is 35.
We
Let's
got
just
a
say it's
spam
40.
attacker
40
right now,
million?
guys.
What's that?
Yeah, they're getting. It's not showing up on our end, but they're getting rid of them. But for some
Okay.
reason, it's not showing that they're deleted over here on us.
Okay. All right.
There's
just
a-
making sure. Go ahead.
There's a $60 million a year difference between being in the Big Ten or the SEC and the ACC. I'm assuming 100 million versus 40 million, right?
Right.
Whatever. I don't know the exact numbers.
Significant gap.
You do that. You do a 5-year break even on that, right? That's $300 million. So
lot of money.
if you're looking at the big picture, they're not even a full member. Notre Dame can do what they want to do, and they'll get out. They'll get out of it. And I think it was Rutgers, right? When they left, there's precedent for them paying. They don't pay the full amount. Somehow they negotiate out. I think that if Notre Dame wants to leave, Notre Dame will be able to leave.
And I agree with you 100%. Quick reminder to everybody in the chat: if you haven't hit the like button, please do so. It helps the video hit the YouTube algorithm, and that's what gets the video suggested more and grows the video. Also, if you have a question, comment, or you want to make fun of any one of us, Super Chat's the best way to do it, and that is that little $ you see on the bottom right-hand corner under the chat. Anything you put in that Super Chat, I will throw it on the screen, and we'll address either if it's a question, comment, whatever it is, we will address it. Yes, I totally agree about Notre Dame. For some reason, here's the thing about Notre Dame. The only reason they have so much power is because everybody has given them so much power.
Well, no, they're a huge brand. No, they've got a massive. This is about money. It's not about wins and losses. And I mean, they have been winning. And with Marcus Freeman, I don't see that dropping off. But let's forget all that.
But there's
Even
a way
when
to
they're
force
losing,
them into conference, though. Like, even if you had to go to the extent of locking them out of the playoffs.
But is the
they're
Big
not hurting
Ten
for money.
is the Big Ten really going to let them? If Stanford joins the Big Ten, is the Big Ten going to say, okay, we'll let USC and we're going to let Stanford play non-Big Ten games in November?
No.
Okay, so let's say the answer is no. So now you got USC and Stanford having to play Notre Dame in September. So that only leaves 2 more Big Ten teams who can play them. And they normally play 2 or 3 teams. So they're going to lose 1 Big Ten game.
well, and when you say Stanford, USC, and sort of UCLA in there, are they going to want their student athletes going out to the Midwest one more time after traveling all those away games? See, that's what Notre Dame's got to figure out as well. To go out to that south, are they going to want to go out to South Bend, travel to the Midwest one more time back east when they don't have to? I'm really thinking that their out of conference schedule is going to be all in California, or why would you want to travel when you're traveling? I don't know. So let's say there's 9 games, so you're traveling 4 to 5 times a year across the country. Why get add another game all the way across the country? It doesn't make a lot of sense.
And USC did that, and Stanford did that because they wanted to go to Notre Dame because it gave them, in that area. But like you said, now you're joining the Big Ten, so you're already going to be in that area, 4 times a year at least. So yeah,
Well, Notre Dame can come out now and they can play San Jose State and San Diego State. There you go. That's what they can play if they don't want to join a conference.
Yeah, I think this really does hurt Notre Dame. I mean, and why would the Big Ten keep bending over backwards to help Notre Dame if Notre Dame's not willing to join them?
I don't think there's a lot of love lost between the Big Ten and Notre Dame, to be honest. I think that's part of historically the problem with Notre Dame wanting to join at this point. I think there's probably a lot of history. I'm not think there's
Guys,
a lot of history.
I'm having
that goes back to
for
Nick
whatever
Rockman.
reason, I'm having a plug-in issue, and the battery is going to die shortly. So I'm going to have to cut this short. I don't know what's going on, if there's a short in my cord or something, but I don't want it to cut, in mid-sentence or whatever. So we'll go ahead and end early.
Joey-
I'll give everybody their last word, and then we'll wrap it up. I don't know what's going on. I'll figure it out for tomorrow, but today I don't know what's going on. We'll start with Jeff. Go ahead and give your last word, buddy.
Could you give the control to Joey and try to figure it out while you're doing that? So that way you don't have to
I
cut it
have
short?
control. I have control from my end, Jeff. But the problem is, if he started to stream there and he unplugged it, it's probably going to knock us off. I'm
yeah.
on the same stream. I'm on the same stream, but it will probably knock us off because we are on the same stream. In other words,
for
you don't
you,
have me
Jeff,
as an
he's
admin.
actually
I'm
Jeff. You're a Patreon, and he's actually going to do a live show for the Patreons as well. So you'll get another show.
Okay, nope,
Yeah.
that's fine. I
Come
didn't,
on
I
over,
didn't want
but-
you to cut it short if you didn't have to.
Yeah, and I'll
it'll
figure
take me
it out
about
for
15
tomorrow.
minutes to get it set up.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
My last word is everybody join Patreon. That way you get all the perks, and starting in a month, you get a chance to start winning $20 a week.
Oh yeah. Score prediction contest.
Yep. You guys have a great night.
Nice plug, Jeff. Thank you.
Hi, Jeff.
Bye.
We'll go to TND Jacksonville State fan. Last word, buddy.
Yeah. I don't really have much to say other than, if y'all want the playoffs to expand, that's y'all business. I know I've been there. I know what it's like. Y'all know what it'll be like when it gets there. And I'm gonna be laughing with popcorn in the corner. So take care, guys.
That's fair.
All right.
That's fair. Good job, buddy. Good job. Sergeant Pickles. Last word, buddy.
Yeah, I got to apologize to Tim because I'm sitting here fighting him about the playoff, and that's the only freaking hope a Pac-12 team has to make it in. So I really shouldn't be doing that. But,
rivalries are rivalries.
Yep, I'm sad we don't get to kick USC in the teeth this year, maybe next year unless they dip out early. So we'll see how that goes.
Ooh.
And I'm going to preface this in advance, Golden Blue Dude, because you seem to be very confused. This is the Washington Huskies. Go Dogs.
Well, I got you now. I'm crystal clear. But
I had you pickled yesterday. I let him know.
Yeah, Tim actually let me have it. Tim's got your back. He actually let me have it. Well said though, bud. We'll see you tomorrow. Tim, last word, buddy.
Well, I was just going to say, since 1990, I think that Washington has the same amount of national championships as the other dogs, so they're pretty even.
Yeah,
But,
that's a good point.
I don't know. Again, I just really feel sorry for kids growing up right now. I got to enjoy when I started watching football. It was like I got the late 80s. I started watching football and through the 90s, and man, it sounds like everyone wants it to become the NFL, and I'll go, okay, fine. But I'm sorry, I'm old school. I think you should win your conference before you could ever say I'm the national champion. I'm not blaming
fair.
Georgia.
That's fair.
Great season, Georgia. You are the national champion. That's the rules that are laid up. Georgia did exactly what they needed to do, and they won the national championship. I'm saying in my perfect world, you don't get a chance to win the national championship if you can't win your conference.
So what you're saying is Georgia played by the rules. You just don't like the rules.
Well, I mean, it's kind of weird because, again, going to a 16-team conference, I'm guessing now that we have a halfway decent coach, that would guarantee USC being in the playoffs pretty much 4 out of 5 years, I would guess, if you're talking top 16. Yeah. I mean, you got a guy like Clay Helton getting us in the top 10 all the time, so I can only imagine what a competent coach is going to be able to do. But the problem is going to be is we have 16 teams. We're just going to completely diminish what it meant to have a regular season win. No one's going to care about win. Will you care about winning the conference if you have to finish third in your conference and you still get to go to the playoffs? Nobody's going to care about conference championships anymore. It's going to further degrade our sport. That's all.
Something to think about. That's fair. Appreciate you, Tim.
See you in a minute,
We'll
Tim.
see you tomorrow, man.
See you in a minute, Tim.
Joey, last word, buddy.
All right, so everybody give me 15, 20 minutes or so to get another stream set up for Patreon. And it will stream through YouTube. You'll be able to comment through YouTube, but you won't be able to watch it unless you're a Patreon member because it's going to be unlisted on YouTube. So you'll have to go into YouTube to get the link or Patreon to get the link.
And all you have
don't
to do is
forget,
Google
everybody,
Golden Blue Patreon page.
That's right. It has nothing. And also, if you are a YouTube member, if you're a channel member,
there's people asking for the Patreon link. Any mods, anybody that has the link, drop it in the comment section.
If if you're a member of the YouTube page, unfortunately, that doesn't give us like your email address to send you the link or anything like that. So you have to be a member of Patreon, and apologize about that. It's why we stress so much about Patreon to be sure and be a member there. All right, guys, that's all
We
I've got.
appreciate your support through through YouTube, but we can't do shows for that because they don't give us the information to do so.
Right, we can't. It's hard. We can't send a private invite to you and things. It just won't allow us. So, all right.
Well said,
don't forget about anybody that's super chatted. You're going to be your name's entered in for the game trail camera, and anybody that's made a purchase off of our store since first of the month, your name's entered into the night vision binoculars.
All right. So the super chat is the camera. Super chat's the camera.
Right. Night vision camera.
So anybody that super chat
the game.
So if you super chat, you'll be entered to win this. And then purchases on the merchandise store, you are entered to win that. Really good prizes. Special thanks to Traveling Fools for the donation. So he's a great guy.
Yep. All right, I'm out of here.
Sub him up if you haven't. He reached 1,000 subscribers, but he's worth the sub. He's got a great channel over there, Traveling Fools.
Yeah, he does. Hey, he's got a lot of new videos coming out too, guys. I talked to him today, and he's got a bunch of videos he's got coming out. So sub him up.
All right, Joey. I appreciate you, man. All right, I'll let you go so you can start prepping for the Patreon. All right, bud. See you. Joey's going to start prepping for the Patreon live show. Jeff, Traveling Fools. Let's see who else. Sorshy Stories. A bunch of people dropped the link for the Patreon page, so that's the best way to do it. And it's not just extra live shows. You get discounts off the merchandise store. During the regular season, we're going to stream games, like actual games on TV, and we'll all watch it together. I let my Patreons vote on what game we're going to stream, and then we all watch it together. And then on top of that, Patreons get to participate in the score prediction contest. Every week, I pick out one game, and the Patreon that gets closest to that score wins $20 every single week. And it's not win one time and you can't win again. You can win as many times as you want. So if you're the closest to the score in every week, then you're going to win a ton of money. But it's only available through Patreons. And the higher the Patreon, the more guesses you get. So if you're a $5 Patreon, you get 5 guesses per week. If you're a $20 Patreon, you get 20 guesses per week. So the higher the Patreon, the better chance you have of winning that $20 every week. Not once a month, not once a year, once a week. So there you go. We had to plug the Patreon. A lot of great, especially for the regular season. That's when it really starts to heat up. So now is the best time to do that. Shout out to everybody that joined the show through StreamYard, everybody that super chatted. Appreciate you. FSU45, man, you support the show like no other. We appreciate you. Everybody that hit the thumbs up, the likes. Hey, even on the way out, hit the thumbs up. It helps. It won't be live, but it still helps the video hit the YouTube algorithm. So on your way out, hit the thumbs up. And it's simple, easy, fast, and free. I'm out of here, guys. My computer's about to die. I would go longer, but it's probably going to die here any second. I'll be back tomorrow, but I don't know when. I don't have a schedule. So it's best to hit the notifications. And if you're not a subscriber, what are you waiting on? We are 336 subscribers away from 10,000 subscribers. We're trying to get there by September 1st. And right now, all we have to average 12 subscribers a day. That's it. And we've been averaging like 50. So we're definitely going to get there. So if you're not a subscriber, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. All right, guys. Before my computer quits, I got to sign off. So y'all have a great night. And I'm definitely going to see you tomorrow. I just don't know when.